Assalamu alaikum. Today on Nuran Academy, we discuss ilm, the architecture of the soul. If you benefit, please support by subscribing and sharing as a sadaqah. You know, we're about to dive into a really profound shift in how we see knowledge, not as some kind of ornament we collect, but as the very tool that actually builds the essence of who we are.
So, let's just start with a question, and I want you to hold this in your heart as we go through this together. Is the knowledge you're seeking for decoration, something to display to the world? Or is it for transformation, something that's meant to fundamentally change you from the inside out?
All right, so here's our journey today. First, we'll talk about that common idea of knowledge as just decoration. Then we're going to redefine it as a sacred responsibility, as ilm. We'll look at its three main pillars, explore a really beautiful analogy, and see how learning can actually become an act of worship. And finally, we'll touch on how our knowledge will one day stand as a witness for or against us.
Let's begin with something I'm sure we've all felt, this pressure to treat knowledge as just an accessory, a requirement for getting ahead in the world.
We hear these things all the time, don't we? Just get the degree. Marks are everything. You should only study what's going to get you a job. This whole mindset, it just reduces the beautiful journey of learning into a simple transaction. It ends up being a race for a piece of paper, not for real understanding.
And this right here is the absolute core of the matter. The world often treats knowledge like it's just information, data points you memorize and spit back out. But Islam gives us a completely different vision. Knowledge, true ilm, is a force for spiritual and intellectual transformation. It's meant to rebuild.
And seeing knowledge as transformation, well, that requires a total paradigm shift. It means we have to move away from this idea of it being a decoration and toward a deep personal sense of responsibility.
This table really lays out the two different paths perfectly. Look, on one side, you have the typical cultural view. Knowledge is a decoration, something to show off. Its job is just to fill the brain with facts. But then, look at the Islamic view. It frames knowledge as a responsibility, a trust we're given to serve creation. It doesn't just fill the brain, it builds the mind. It grows wisdom, deepens our connection to our Creator, and leads to that real lasting transformation.
So what is this transformative knowledge, this ilm, actually built on? Well, it stands on three solid pillars that really define what it is. You see, true ilm isn't passive. It's an active living thing. It has to start with humility, with the honest recognition of how little we actually know. From there, it moves into understanding with real depth, going beyond just the surface-level facts to find the wisdom underneath. And then finally, the most important part, applying that knowledge with integrity, letting it actually guide our actions and shape who we are.
And this right here is the true test of real knowledge. If what you're learning just makes you feel superior or arrogant, then it's not ilm. It's just information. But if it makes you feel more accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to His creation, then you know it's becoming true ilm.
This whole idea of accountability brings us to a really beautiful analogy that makes the purpose of knowledge in our tradition so clear.
Just think about the difference for a second. A mirror, it can reflect light perfectly, right? It shows you exactly what's in front of it. It reflects facts, but it doesn't create any light of its own. Now think about a lamp. A lamp produces its own light. It doesn't just reflect what's already there, it illuminates the path forward, it guides other people through the dark. Information is the mirror, ilm is the lamp. This is such a powerful statement. The goal of our tradition was never just to create people who could repeat facts. It was to raise leaders of understanding, people who could internalize knowledge and use it to light the way for everyone else.
So, the big question is, how do we turn our own pursuit of knowledge into that illuminating lamp? It happens when we totally reframe our intention, when we elevate our learning to the highest possible level, an act of worship.
I mean, the world is always pushing us to ask, what's in it for me? What career can I get? What salary? What status? But Islam flips that question completely. It asks us something so much deeper. How will this knowledge help me benefit creation? How can I use this to serve?
And the amazing thing is, when you make that mental shift, when your intention is truly to serve Allah through what you study, something incredible happens. The very act of learning becomes worship. And when you're doing something for Allah, you don't have to force yourself to be excellent. Excellence becomes the natural, sincere outcome of your devotion. In this dedication to excellence in worship, it naturally brings us to think about the end goal, that final reckoning, the day when everything we learned and did is presented and weighed. So here's a really practical tool you can use for that mindset shift. Before you sign up for a class or pick up a book or decide to learn a new skill, just pause. Ask yourself this one vital question. How will this make me useful to Allah's world? Let that be the compass for your entire journey of learning. Because this is the ultimate reality we all have to face. One day, every single one of us is going to stand before our Creator. And on that day, the knowledge that we gained in this life, it's going to be brought forward as a witness. It will either testify for us, showing how we used it to serve and get closer to Him, or it's going to testify against us as a heavy burden that we collected but never truly carried with integrity.
So let's end with this one transformative thought. Ilm is not just what you know. It's not a collection of facts in your head. True ilm is measured by the person you become because of it. More humble, more compassionate, more responsible, more ready to serve. So the question is, what will your knowledge say about you? Presented and created by Nuran Studio.